Hello, Paul, and welcome back for podcast number 2. We went to an event by G Money, Metaverso, and at that point, I remember before we went, you were skeptical of the whole NFT space. What happened at Metaverso that kind of a light bulb went off for you at that moment that maybe you were able to see some things that you didn't know prior to? Right. So just tell me
Yeah.
about your experience at Metaverso.
So Metaverso was a conference for NFTs in Puerto Rico that your brother invited us to. Skeptical is actually pretty kind. I thought NFTs were a joke. After realizing that your brother turned, a couple $100,000 into a couple $1,000,000, I figured it's worth investigating. And so you and I went, we sat down and we listened to, I don't know, maybe like 4 presentations, right? Some of these presentations had panelists. So there was like 5 or 6 companies represented in one presentation. So I'd say maybe we got exposure to maybe like 15 different companies or heard them talk. The cool thing, and whenever I speak, so it did change my mind about NFTs. And I started to see some real great use cases for them. One being an NFT.
But hold on, even before that, weren't you amazed at how many people were there? Like it was a kind of no.
I thought it was a storm there.
I thought it was packed. I wasn't expecting that many people to go to Puerto Rico for this event.
I mean, there's NFT events all over Miami.
It's a little bit different. I mean, I don't know. I feel like December. Yeah, I guess it was out. I guess I just wasn't expecting that many people to do the traveling to really learn more. I didn't know how many people were in it, but sorry to cut you off. Go ahead.
I mean, that was almost at the peak, pretty like before the peak. So at that point, people were like crushing it. But what I did like is that when everybody, and mine included, first inclination when you think of an NFT is you think of a profile picture and how stupid it is that some kind of digital picture could be worth so much money, right? I think that was like the broad feeling of what they are, myself included. But there's that's like a vast understatement, because NFTs could be the title to your house. Like that's an NFT, right? It could be, it should be. That's not a profile picture. So basically, from listening to a lot of the panelists, I realized that NFTs can be linked to hard or real world assets. So that right there was a game changer. Then I like how NFTs can fractionalize things very easy, things that currently can't be fractionalized. Like we almost did a whiskey project, right? And so we can talk about that next. And then I just started realizing that NFTs will start being used for things that don't make sense in the world now. So take real estate, right? Like the title to your house. There's no reason town hall has to keep records on paper in a filing cabinet, like ever. The title to your house was an NFT that could be transferred to the new owner and it's stored. It's just so much easier and it just makes so much more sense. So things like that, I think eventually will start becoming adopted. And when I realized
you mean stored on the blockchain.
Yeah. And like if you think about it now, the real estate world is completely backward in so many ways. And that's one of them. Like they're still using paper. You still go to a closing and sign stacks of paper, right? And it takes 2 hours and everybody's signing paper and passing it around. So it's just kind of seems antiquated now when you can do it with the click of a mouse and there's a non-fungible token for it. Like it seems like the future. So now coming out of that conference with those realizations in my head is what started my journey into NFTs. Now, alongside with that, the first things that did happen with NFTs were digital art, profile pictures, all that kind of stuff, which also is cool. I mean, you can also argue that a picture hanging on somebody's wall or in a museum being worth $100 million is ridiculous. So a picture that's just digital now being worth, hundreds of thousands of dollars is not so far off. We have a friend who tried to buy a Mickey Mantle rookie card who doesn't own any NFTs, but is a big sports collector. And because it was the first Mickey Mantle rookie card, was willing to pay $100,000 for it. And he didn't even know what he's doing. So we tried to help him. And it actually ended up selling for close to $500,000, right? So like when it comes to art and collectibles, the whole world already doesn't make sense.
Well, it's always going to be perspective, right? And what like somebody wants to pay for.
Baseball cards growing up, or if you collect anything, Pokemon, what people do, things are worth money because people like them. They have a feeling applied to it. And NFTs is just another, speculative way to get that kind of feeling.
All right. So you started touching on a project that we were actually entertaining a whiskey project. What
Right.
did you like about that particular one? Because they had come to us basically asking us if we can help them sell the whiskey on the blockchain. One, because there was some, in that world, there was a lot of fraud getting a barrel that wasn't really a Macallan and things like that. So there was the usage of selling it on the blockchain for authenticity purposes. But then we kind of went down that rabbit hole, and we started coming up with a few ideas of how to get into that game in this space. So if you want to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, the cool thing about that is that when I talk to traditional finance people, myself being one of them, I just described how my mindset could change. They kind of had the same thing. And then when I tell them this story, which I'm about to tell you, it's not a story, but like this application, they all start getting it. So I still think this is a great idea. It's another like old school, old world process. Casks of whiskey, Macallan, high-end whiskeys, they age anywhere from 1 to 50 years. The older they are, the more valuable they are. Things like, I'm talking about like millions of dollars valuable when it gets up to like 25 plus years.
Yeah, remember when we heard it would get so in one cask, they were able to get 300 bottles out of it, right? But that cask, after 50 years, if it made it 50 years, was valued at almost 30 million because they were selling at about 90,000.
If it makes it to 50, and at the point we were talking, I think it was like 23 or 24 years old, right?
Yeah.
So what they will do is people collect these things just like they collect art. If it appreciates at an 8%, yield every year, it's an investment. And they auction them off at, like Sotheby's and Christie's or wherever they do it in Scotland or London, where these things are popular. And so basically this would be bought by one wealthy person for 750,000 pounds, I think was the barrel that we were talking about. And then that person would store it somewhere. Like they do in the art world too. A lot of these people buy art and they store it in these tax efficient warehouses. They don't even put them in their house, and they just treat it as a sole investment. It's not even about the art or the whiskey. So what we were going to do is we were going to purchase this barrel for say 750,000 pounds. We were then going to issue 300 NFTs, which would represent ownership in the barrel, and they would all represent one bottle once that cask would be opened, right? 750,000 pounds divided by 300.
2,500.
Yes. So you would buy this NFT for 2,500, which would give you one bottle or 1/300th of the cask, right? The barrel is worth $750,000 now. Let's say in 5 years, it appreciates to 1.5 million. Your NFT you can resell it probably for 5,000 pounds instead of 2,500. If the thing actually gets to 50 years, and it's $30 million, you just start doing the numbers, right? Not only that, who makes these decisions? So now you would have something formed like a DAO where these 300 people who would have to show the NFT to gain entrance. When people talk about governance, all that means is the voting mechanism for what happens. So let's say in a year, the cask goes up 8%. You say, I think we should crack the cask now and we all should get our bottles. And the other 299 people are like, you're out of your mind, we're holding this. And we would vote. 299 would vote no, you would vote yes, and that would be the end of it. That's it, right? So then you're like, screw it. I only did this because I wanted the whiskey. So you sell your NFT to somebody else and you can transfer it very easily, but you can't do that. Like there's no mechanism to do this in the world now, right? There's no broker who's like brokering transactions that are pieces of whiskey barrels. So this is a real world application to where NFT is presenting this opportunity. Does that all make sense?
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
So that's what you were attracted to.
I just think it's a great idea. I still think it's a great idea. I still think we should do it.
Ether versus Solana.
So I'm not going to pretend that I know the intricacies of each one down to the code and what they actually do, because I don't. What I have done is used both of them. Ethereum is just more popular because it was first. When people were transacting on smart contracts, Ethereum was the go-to. It's gotten better now, but when you're doing a transaction with Ethereum, first of all, if I'm trying to transfer you something, it could take 20 minutes, right? It could take 5 minutes, but it usually takes like 20 minutes. It could take 45 minutes. It could take over an hour. So it doesn't feel great. It's a lot better than a bank, but it still takes 20 minutes. The fees, which are called gas fees, are pretty high, like really high. So Anthony, who just had to transfer me 150 NFTs from one wallet to my wallet, he had to pay the equivalent of $700 in gas fees. Like that's insane. If you're trying to buy something for $10 and the fees are $6. That's like taking $10 out of an ATM machine and paying the $3.50, and then the bank charges you another $3.50, and you paid $6.50 to get your $10, right? Like
Right.
that doesn't make any sense. When I started messing around with Solana, it's instant, and then the transaction fees are sub a penny. And so just from using it, like it's just a pleasure to use when you're doing transactions, when you're sending people NFTs, when you're buying NFTs or minting them compared to Ethereum. It's just night and
So
day.
why are these new projects that are coming out still going on Ethereum blockchain and not Solana?
Being the first to market like Ethereum was holds a lot of weight. So people are familiar with Ethereum, and getting people to do anything that's new or that they don't understand is just a barrier. That's number one. It doesn't make any sense that they are using Ethereum. Everybody
So,
should be.
so if we were launching our own NFT, we would be using Solana?
50-50, because I would be scared to say if we launch it on Solana, even though it makes so much more sense, there's so many more people who already know how to just what they're doing on Ethereum. The risk of them having to set up a new wallet for the Solana blockchain, buying Sol instead of buying ETH, may be enough for them to not participate in our project.
Got it.
Number two, Solana has its own problems. They've got a hack as of yesterday, and a lot of people spam the Solana network, which overloads it because the fees are so small. So it doesn't cost them that much money to send thousands of transactions through because they're less than a penny, and it jams up the whole network. I don't really understand the motivation for them doing it, but it has happened 4 times. There's downsides to Solana too. But the point is, like when they're both working, and then I'll say one more, which was ETH is now supposed to have like this upgrade, which is supposed to make everything faster and cheaper on ETH. And I have already seen in the past week, the fees on Ethereum come down by probably 60%, which is cool. They're still kind of like, it's like 2 competing companies. We'll see who makes it.
So you said, just to clarify for people, what are gas fees?
The fees paid to the miners who are validating the transaction. To put it in the simplest form, I send something to you, there's no bank involved. There has to be some kind of validation in there, and that is the blockchain. And the people enabling that blockchain are the miners. And so they get paid for doing that. What do you use to vet an NFT project when you're considering buying it, or any new project, even if you're not considering buying it? How do you vet them?
Number one would be vetting the founders, right? Like who's behind this project? What is their experience? What is their reputation? I think that's actually the most important. Number two would be how strong is the community? Because the community is the one that's really pushing the hype and the value of these things, right? If you don't have a bunch of people supporting this, it could go flat after a mint. We saw that happen with, Hate Beast, right? They had a ton of hype about the project. We were super excited. We loved the art. And then once they did the reveal, right, the community shit on them. They weren't happy with it.
They didn't like the art after the reveal, right?
They didn't like the art after the reveal, right? And that had a major effect. I mean, that tanked the project that we thought was going to be great. So I think number one are the founders. Number two is the community. And for me, number three is the utility behind it, right? So take a project like Flyfish. You have Gary V, founder, highly respected, very visible, trusted by a lot of people, ton of experience, great track record. Founder, check. Community, people love Gary V. You go on his Discord channels, go on Instagram, TikTok. He's got a ton of loyal people, right? They love hearing him. They love being involved in anything that he does. And three, utility. Flyfish is like, it's like the old school Rayo's, right? Rayo's is a popular restaurant in New York where you have to know somebody to get in. And what Gary did was he created a restaurant that you have to own an NFT to get in. So there's status behind it and there's exclusivity. I think a combination of those three things makes it a home run. We're still learning and looking at projects. We have 400 and somewhat NFTs, which are the ones that didn't work, right? And why didn't it work? So they had a strong founder, but maybe a weak community, or they had a strong founder, strong community, but maybe a weak roadmap and weak utilization for it. Who knows? But those are things that we're learning as we go. I see that the projects that are most successful for us have those three things in common.
Yeah. Here's the reason 90% of NFT projects don't work. If you think of also an NFT project, what you're really doing is you're investing in a startup company, right? So before NFTs existed, you and I started a fitness company. What do you have to do to get money from people? You actually have to show them how you're going to make them money. And you actually probably go to meetings with them, show them a pitch deck, and you have to answer their questions. And then they may or may not give you money after they rake you through the coals even more. And they want to see your financials, and they want to see your P&Ls, and they want to see your balance sheet, and they want to know when they're going to get their money back, right? And so that's a process. And that's basically how the world worked until NFT land came along. And really what you're doing, and I mean, and I respect people for taking advantage of it because it was so easy, but anybody who was minting a project basically was just saying, hey, here's our idea. So we're going to give you 10,000 pictures, give us 10 million, 5 million, 20 million bucks. And we promise we're going to start a company and we're going to do something cool. That's literally what 90% of them are. And a lot of them still are. And so really when you,
is that a rug pull?
no, that's not a rug pull. That's just being able to raise money really freaking easily.
No, I'm saying when they actually don't do what they say they're going to do.
A rug pull is kind of like fraud. It's like when they take the money and then they're just like, F you, we're not doing anything. Most of them are just not executing because these are people who are starting companies, and starting a company is hard, and most companies fail anyway, right? But they didn't even have to do the most basic of creating a business plan, going to do the meeting, creating that. They did something called a roadmap, which is one piece of paper, say, we're going to do this, then we're going to do this, then we're going to do this, then we're going to do this. And people are like, cool, here, we're in, because it was spread out between 10,000 people, right? So when you're trying to raise $1 million or $5 million, you're usually trying to do it from one person or two or three or a few people. I mean, we raised for our startup, and this is 15 years ago maybe, but we raised what, $300,000 to start a physical location. And we got that from 10 people who each gave us 30 grand. And to have those 10 people, we probably had to have 20 or 25 conversations, and not just one conversation. And we had to answer all their questions. And it probably took us 6 months. Right. Didn't take us 2 weeks. And then we were just going to say, hey, we're going to start a location and we're going to start it on this day, and we promise you we will. That's what most of the NFT projects were, because the hype gets so out of control. So that's just another way to think about it. The picture represents it, but you're really giving money to a team or a founder who has an idea, who has to then go execute on, which is why I agree with what you said, that the founder is important, the community, yes, too. But really, these people are crowdfunding a new company. That's what it is. And so if you have a founder who's already had successful companies or done successful things, the likelihood of it, like Gary V, is a lot stronger.